Hello and welcome back, everyone. This is Moritz Bierling, Director of Research at Exosphere, and today we have a very special guest on the 10th episode of the Creative Economy Interviews, David Orban. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's get into David's background, and then we're going to ask him a couple of questions and see where the conversation takes us. So David is a friend of one of our founders at Exosphere here, Antonio Mano, and he has been already in our network, in our circle of friends for quite a while. And he is an investor and entrepreneur, author, and a keynote speaker, as well as a thought leader of the global technology landscape. Currently, he is the managing partner of Network Society Ventures, a seed-stage global venture investment firm that seeks to invest in disruptive technology-based companies that are leading the transformation from the post-industrial age to the network society. And we're going to get into what that means in a minute. He is also a member of the faculty of and an advisor to the Singularity University, an interdisciplinary university whose mission is to assemble, educate, and inspire leaders who strive to understand and facilitate the development of exponentially advancing technologies in order to address humanity's grand challenges. It's long words, long sentences, but we're going to get into that in a minute. Now, instead of listing the rest of his accomplishments and experiences, which would take me definitely a full 5 minutes, we're going to get right into the questions. And the first one I have is about Network Society Ventures. It's a very interesting project from what I can tell just from the website and from the online activity I've seen so far. But what exactly is it? Like, how was it born? And what plans do you have for it in the future?
Network Society Ventures is a venture capital investment firm, and it was born out of my experience both with Singularity University, where we analyze and teach and implement the understanding of the consequences of exponential technologies, as well as Network Society Research, which is a London-based global nonprofit that I founded a few years ago that asks itself, what comes next? What are the consequences of exponentials? And gives a very, very specific answer, working on a hypothesis that decentralization is a natural consequence of today's technologies.
Very interesting. Yeah, when I look at the website and when I read through the copy, I kind of get the feeling that it has a lot of allusions to evolution and the biological process. Like, there seems to be a change from what we considered a mechanical age in the industrial era to a more organic age, where we see processes not as something that is necessarily designed and has very strong mechanisms that we can understand all of the time, but rather a more organic evolutionary process where things happen on their own and have a natural tendency towards certain directions. Do you think that that is a general shift from a metaphor that has kind of run its course to a new one today?
I believe that layers of complexity evolve without displacing previous ones, but founding the new degrees of freedom and the open opportunities that are created to the solid foundation that those previous layers represent. As a consequence, even though we can and do use our understanding of the world to create and the technological process that we use to do so is not dependent on biological evolution. Our roots are in biology. Similarly, if it will be the case that in a further cycle, we will actually generate ideas and facilitate the emergence of the best ideas through a more organic process, as you mentioned, it is not going to displace the previous approach. It will augment and it will make the previous approach more efficient.
Yes, it's a very interesting point. Yesterday I had an interview guest on the show who comes from the biological sciences and who is part of that group of people who are working hard on making tools and technology available to more people to work with biology with their own hands without needing access to the institutions that usually hold these technologies kind of prisoner to access. And he was also very interested in bringing about this change that you talk about. But your perspective on augmenting the previous stages is something that I think a lot of people forget when they talk about change. Instead of throwing out everything that has come in the past, we generally, as you said, we tend to augment it and build on top of it rather than strike it all down and start from fresh.
A simple example that I often make is to think about bacteria. For a couple of billion years on Earth, bacteria and single-celled organisms were the most advanced forms. And you would have been perfectly right if you were two bacteria having a live hangout 3 billion years ago, and you said, hey, we are so cool. Look at us. For a billion years, there's been nothing better than us. And I would respond, yeah, you're so right. I bet for another billion years, there's never going to be anything better. We would have been right. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly, from a biological point of view, through the course of millions or tens of millions of years, multi-celled organisms would emerge. And then, of course, life would conquer ecological niches that were unavailable before, plants and animals and everything we know. Yes, and that was an incredible change. But under certain measures, bacteria are still the dominant life form on the planet. The big difference is they are not dreaming to go to the stars. We are.
Right. This is a very good way of looking at it. You have a background in physics from Italian universities, and when you were talking, I had the sense that this also informs your view of these developments. When we think about the changes that are coming and that are seeming to be happening at a much more rapid rate than in the previous, or than in all the time that has come before it, I wonder whether you could comment on it from a physics perspective. I think entropy plays a role here, doesn't it?
Our capability to observe cycles of change and enrich data points in the past informs our understanding of the future. The acceleration that we see today is real. In the Middle Ages, if you invented a new tool and your father was against using it because his father used the previous kind of tool and that was perfectly fine, well, you waited until he died and then you started using the tool, and your child, your son, would be born with that tool.
Right.
And you would never believe that there was any time that things could be done differently.
I see.
Brad Pattis, the founder of MakerBot, the 3D printing company, spoke a few years ago at the Chaos Computer Club conference in Berlin, and he had an astonishingly beautiful slide on his talk. He said, "Things change faster than we can die." That convenient cycle of renewal of the generations, where the new ways of doing things is intimately familiar to the people who are building the future, is unavailable, because people who are in their 50s and are laid off, but still society wants them to have an economical output, need to adapt to a radically different work environment if they want to be employable. And they are not ready to die. The average lifespan today is 80, so they are still looking forward to 30 years at least, and maybe more.
Right.
So this acceleration is absolutely real. And there is, kind of a fractal self-similarity, because if a solar system were able to look at what is happening on Earth or the other planets, you know, sedately evolving through their own cycles that are not even mineralogical cycles, because they are fairly stable planets. Their transformations are very, very slow. Those planets looking at Earth would be astonished at what is going on.
Right.
Because from a geological point of view, the hundreds of millions of years of plate tectonics and the birth of mountains, or the transformation of minerals that are even due to life, can appear really the blink of an eye from their point of view, right? So they look at Earth and how it evolves as extremely rapid. Animals, if they were able to observe how the planet is transforming in the past 10,000 years, they would be astonished. And the reason they have a hard time adapting, most of them, is because they cannot cope. And similarly today, those among us humans who, for you know, either reasons of their genetical makeup or because of their upbringing, are pushing the limits of their adaptability, are looking at these years and are saying, "Wow, I cannot keep up."
Right. So basically, as time goes on and more variety is in closer proximity to each other, and we have more dense loci of phenomena happening in concert with each other, lots more things happen in short amounts of time, and we kind of see it, everything seems to be speeding up. And I think that also has to do with what you said earlier, that new changes build on top of old foundations, and so these new changes then can take advantage of the structures that have already been built over millennia and even longer time spans to make more significant changes in short amounts of time, because they can leverage the old structures. But I want to change gears a little bit, because when I read your biography, I got the sense that you love to start a lot of new things and kind of contribute to that evolutionary cycle a lot. Especially if starting things that are the leading edge of technology, society, entrepreneurship. So does this inventor spirit, this kind of explorer mentality run in the family, or are you the only one?
Well, my parents were respectively, my father was an actor and director, and my mother a painter. So they are both, if you wish, creators, but I create companies, startups, business models. Now with Network Society Ventures, have the beautiful opportunity of reaching out and catalyze the energy and the reach of potentially hundreds of startups. They were creators in a more traditional sense. But I do think that both activities can be looked at in terms of being creative activities.
Right, and I guess Italy also is a very fertile ground for the creative process. I mean, historically, it has been at the center of cultural change. It has been the birthplace of the Renaissance, and that brings me also to a question that that is maybe a little bit different from what you're used to normally. So, do you identify with any kind of permanent role or feature, or like how much does your nationality or your work history or even your life decisions define you as an individual?
When I was 10 or 12 years old in Hungary, Budapest, where I grew up, I actually remember standing in the middle of the Danube on one of these beautiful bridges. There are 8 of them crossing from one side of the city to the other. And in particular, I liked one of them called the Chain Bridge. So I remember standing in the middle, looking out to this wonderful city, 2 million people, and pretending to be a Martian, and asking myself, what would the various features of both the city physically, but also the technological layer and the social layer and the interactions and the people, how physically they were, how they communicated, what would that mean to me? So since then, I kept fairly proudly the position of being kind of a professional outsider, both when I enter a new industry, like online video 6 years ago, the Internet of Things 10 years ago, or others, AI 30 years ago, and today the world of investing. I look at the rules, I see which of them to keep, which ones to break, and without asking permission, just do the things that I think are useful, valuable, as well as fun, and as you said, creative. How much I can push transforming what I do, and by reflection what I am, is an open question. And you know, per definition, there will be phase transformations, and the last one of them will be when other people agree that I'm dead. I pushed the boundary far enough so that my identity cannot be looked at as a continuum, but it will have a very natural break.
Right. Yeah. The topic of questions, you seem to be very interested in it as well. Your personal motto on your website states that it is, what is the question I should be asking? Now, what do you mean by this? Like, please explain why this is important to you and how it differentiates your approach from those of others.
It is fairly classical to divide the domain of knowledge in things that you know, things that you know you don't know, and then the ones that can really kill you, the things that you don't even know you don't know, right? So when you want to map out a course of action, lists are fantastic. You just start with the lists that you know you should be doing, and then you ask yourself, well, what are the things on the list that are not there? What are the things that I should be doing, but can I know them? And then you come to the boundary where you ask others, hey, this is my list of the things I know I should be doing, things I'm not sure, or I'm asking myself, are these the right priority? Are you suggesting any others? So the quality of that exploration and the efficiency, as you can hone in what are the missing parts, and then deciding whether you want to acquire the skills and the resources that are needed in order to complete the list, or you want to partner with somebody, you want to hire somebody, you want to engage or delegate people with complementary talents or resources. This is a lot of what entrepreneurship is really about, the ability of going from idea to action in the shortest possible time, the most efficiently possible. And if you are asking the wrong questions, you will be hitting your head against the wall and be extremely frustrated because of lack of progress, while somebody else asking smarter questions is going to be able to go ahead, not effortlessly, but much more successfully and efficiently than you.
Right, yeah. I guess that the entrepreneurship, you could also characterize it as an evolutionary process. I mean, you take something that you have an idea about, you have an intuition probably mostly about, not even necessarily a formulated idea, and then you start the first iteration, and as soon as you have something that you can evaluate again, you do the same thing again. You start all over again. You think, okay, am I still going in the right direction? What can I do with the resources I now have at my disposal? Which direction should I be taking? And it kind of goes through these cycles. So what is one of the ideas or questions or projects that you would like to be doing in the future that you have already been thinking about for a couple of years, but you are not investing time and energy in right now?
Well, there are a lot of these. As somebody intellectually curious, for me, often the greatest effort is required in not going to explore some exciting new thing, but concentrate on what I need to be doing today instead. The ADHD kind of behavior is actually adaptive. Today, for a lot of people, knowing a little bit about a lot of things can be extremely helpful, rather than being the world's greatest specialist of an operating system that is not in use anymore. Keeping up with how things change is helpful. So just to mention one, I am extremely excited about how access to space and the opportunities create startups around space are becoming available. This is a consequence of a lot of changes in the way we do business, the fact that we start to understand the mechanics and the chemistry of space, the fact that governments both in Europe and in the US are concentrating on research and delegating mundane space applications in near Earth orbit to private companies. And I am absolutely sure that thousands of startups will blossom as a consequence everywhere, and being able to invest in those companies via Network Society Ventures, but also being able to understand the implications of what this is going to mean for humanity overall is very, very interesting and exciting.
Yes, Exosphere itself also has been very interested in the possibility of space exploration, and not just that, but also colonization, of course, in the long run. And we also saw that Elon Musk has recently put forward his plan, although maybe not presented in the best way. He definitely has a lot of questions already figured out. But Exosphere last year did a very interesting program called Copernicus, which was about trying to conduct a research project within 3 weeks using startup methodologies for idea creation and generation and refinement, and bringing together people from various age groups, so students as well as professionals and entrepreneurs, for 3 weeks into a castle in Hungary, actually, where you spend a lot of your time, and then to work on the idea of a space elevator that is endogenously powered, so that would bring rocks down from space to Earth, and cargo and other material from Earth to space, and of course people as well. And we had a lot of very interesting ideas, of course, generated, but the most interesting thing to me was that space exploration is not really a matter of getting the right technology and having the right ideas. It is more a matter of getting people to collaborate very well with each other, who bring very different things to the table, and to make the best use of their talents as is possible. To me, it seems that in this day and age, we have so many technologies already available. Of course, we need many more to actually fulfill this promise that space has. But the real barrier we have is in bringing these people together, using the talents they have available, and then building that capability up over the long term. So I'm very interested in seeing where this develops. I've been talking with lots of people in the space entrepreneurship area. I've contacts with lots of space startups. And now we're actually bringing our relationship with space also again to our academy, where we have a stream right now for the January and February program that is called Mars Colonization. And we're going to have Dr. Susan Jewell from the US, who is going to be taking our participants through an actual analog research project. So I'm very excited about that, and I hope to see lots of people coming there, and we're very excited about that. But as my last question to you, I would like to know what kind of advice or message you would give to people who are in this kind of age group of students, perhaps from 20 to 30, who are looking to be part of this new age, of this post-industrial economy, as you put it in your profile, and who don't really know how to get started, and who kind of have maybe a little bit of fear about, okay, if I really get into this, will I fail? Will I make it? What do I need to do to get started?
Well, anybody listening to this recording or watching it on YouTube belongs to a very select group of people. So if they are between their 20s and 30s, as you said, I think that they should feel proud and excited and ambitious to really go out and test their ideas. Of course they will fail. Oh yeah, and many times. But without that, they will not be able to succeed. And luckily, most of the times, failure today does not mean death, does not mean being imprisoned, does not mean being judged by others any different than courageous, passionate, creative people who are exploring the boundaries of the possible, and as a consequence, naturally and necessarily have missteps of their own. And I would even go further. The opportunities we have today do not belong to a certain given age. Many people have the possibility, and I hope all of them will have the courage to do the same, to explore, to seek to understand, and to apply what they learn to achieve interesting outcomes in terms of creating value for themselves, their families, their local environment, and humanity at large.
Yes, indeed. The possibility of people beyond this age group that I described is definitely there, and I don't mean to exclude them, but usually the people who follow us are more on the younger side. Although we've had lots of people from very different walks of life. We've had construction workers, we've had professors, we've had people, single mothers, and all these kind of different people coming to our programs. And so if you are in that kind of position and you are ready to make that step, but need kind of the space to develop your own idea or get the first habits and the right mindset, you're welcome to check out our website and contact us. You will find all the contact information down below in the description. And if you're already a step beyond that and maybe already have an idea and are working on a project and are kind of going full steam ahead, but really need that last kind of bit of help or want to connect with somebody who has a lot of experience and a lot of interest in these subjects, please reach out to David. His contact information is also below in the description, and he will be happy to have a conversation with you as time permits. I want to thank you again, David, for your appearance on the show. It was really a pleasure to talk with you, and I really appreciate that you take your time out of your busy day for this interview. And I really hope that we will continue this relationship in the future and talk in the future as well.
Thank you very much, and I am looking forward to our interactions, both online and hopefully at one of your events in the future.
Thank you very much. And as a last request for our viewers, please take the time to complete our survey that I've also linked in the description. We are conducting a survey on the nature of work and technology in the 21st century. We are using this to get a better idea of where everybody is at so that we can help people better by understanding them. And then also, if you're interested in what we have to offer, I want to recommend you to check out the website especially for the entrepreneurship stream, and also we have lots of science streams that are working to help you build ideas and projects out of these ideas. And then lastly, you can also follow us on social media, of course, to get notified when I put out a new video and I have the next guest on the show. So thanks everyone for watching, and I will see you in the next one.